Okay, and we're back. Hi, Kevin. Welcome back for part two.
Thank you. It's good to be here for part two.
I was happy with part one. It felt good. I blotched a little. That's how you know it's going to be a good episode. We're really getting into the heated stuff.
Yeah, I'm watching already. I feel like it can
Good.
only get better.
I like have a fan next to me just in case. Yeah, last time we just did a little catch up. It felt good, but this time, part two, we're really going to dive into what you came to me with this idea for this episode, and I think it's a good one. Just kind of passion projects and pursuing your passions unapologetically, and yeah, just living your truth. I don't know. I feel it so strong, and I'm glad. I think we're a good partnership to be talking about this, if I do say so.
Agreed.
Very exciting.
I absolutely agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah, me too. So I don't know. I was curious about like how we should kick this off, but I think this is going to go best if we just treat it as the normal conversation we'd be having in the cast, Kev. So that's what we're going to do. I'll kick it off here. We hear it all the time. This is kind of a quote that popped into my mind when this idea popped up. You do something you love and you'll never work a day in your life. I think we hear that all the time, right? Like my parents have said that, my grandparents have said that. It's just like a thing. I don't know. That's obviously the dream, right? You want to do something that you genuinely enjoy doing, but I think more often than not, that's not the case. What are your reactions to that quote? Have you heard it? Do you agree with it? How do you feel? Just
I have heard it, and I have a lot of feelings on it.
Good.
Where do I start? Okay, so first, how do we define love? What is love?
Okay, so we'll start light then. Just a nice little
easy, throwing it out there.
wade into the pool.
Love?
Okay.
And we'll probably get there, but I think when someone says like, "Oh, imagine yourself doing what you love," you instantly imagine yourself like in the office that you want, wearing the clothes that you want, doing the job that you want, just being so happy, euphorically happy, and eventually get there if you work hard enough. It's kind of like the American dream.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not really what love is. Like love is more complicated than that, as we all know. And there's like a really dark underbelly to love that also has to be acknowledged. And if you're doing what you love, then you also have to acknowledge that there's going to be fights, just like you do with a spouse that you love, and conflicts, and really bad days and really happy days, along with like the idealized version. If you've ever been in romantic love, think about what it's like. You know, it has ebbs and flows, and so I guess that's just like what, when I think of that, I try to acknowledge the other side of love, in that it's not all going to be sunshine and rainbows. There's going to be some less than ideal situations.
Absolutely. No, that's very interesting. And I think I've never ever thought about that particular quote, truism, whatever you want to say, in that light, because it is just this, you mentioned American dream. I think that's very on the nose. It's just very, right, like this idealistic idea of your future, that everything's going great and you're doing what you love and you're just the person you want to be. But I think, yeah, to acknowledge the fact that you have to work really hard to get there, and that even once you're there, it doesn't just plateau. You know what I mean? That it's always kind of, like you said, ebbs and flows. This is very interesting to me. It reminds me. Go ahead.
No, you go.
Okay. I was going to say it reminds me, and I feel like every single time we like talk, this comes up. It reminds me of Whiplash, which is the movie you introduced me to. And the kind of premise of that is just pursuing a passion to the point of madness. Like you're so obsessed with your craft and you want to get it so perfect that maybe you even lose part of yourself getting there. Or is that more it's very interesting to me. And that's what I thought of when you talked about that. Tell me more.
Yeah. God, Whiplash is such a good movie.
It just is.
Yeah. It has so many little lessons. Yeah. Because we talk about Whiplash a lot. Because it's like, it was a formative part of our relationship.
It just was.
But I think that was the program title, was like something along the lines of pursuing passion, like passion versus madness. And also like what is, going back to what, passion, love, madness, anxiety, I think they're all like cousins. Like I think they, it's Memorial Day weekend. I think if these emotions weren't in quarantine, they'd be at like a party together. And like they're kind of like the group of friends, like passion and anxiety. I think like, hey, do you want to invite Passion to the party tonight? Like, Passion's really great. I love when they're around. She's really cool. Yeah, I'd like Passion to be here, but like, anxiety is always with her, and I don't really like anxiety that much. But you're like, but if you want passion, you gotta have anxiety. So
That's no, I like this image. I think it's very true. Wow. This is
yeah,
interesting. No, but it's true. I think it goes hand in hand. And I think it's kind of that idea that if you're nervous about something, it's good because it means you really care. I think it's
yeah,
in the same vein. It's like you're really passionate about something, but of course you're going to want to do your best within that. Like, if I'm talking about the podcast, the blogcast, it's like I'm passionate about it. I want it to be the best that it can be. But of course, there's a lot of stressors that go into that. And I think the more passionate you get, it's a parallel line. Wouldn't you say?
yeah, yeah. I love that phrase that you said. If you're nervous about something, it means you care. I
Mm.
heard that at a very euphoric moment. I was on a run. Shout out Nike Run Club, and
Oh wait,
I believe
Kevin,
they.
I love Nike Run Club when it goes
Oh
through
yeah.
the Headspace crossovers.
Mhm.
It's like a
Mhm.
mind-blowing
Yeah.
thing. Andy Puttycombe. I love that guy.
I was just listening to one today. It was
So
so
good.
great.
So good.
I was just in one. I think this is one of the first ones they released like during global pandemic quarantine,
Okay.
and it was called "I Need This Run."
Yeah.
And one of the things that he says, like he really, Coach Bennett, like kind of gets somber. He's like, "Hey, if you're nervous right now, it means you care." And it was like this wave of like release throughout my body. It's like, you're right. Like I'm nervous about everything right now because I care about my family. I care about the global economy. I care about these graduates like yourself that are like entering this kind of mad world, and I'm really nervous for all of them and myself. And it was so validating to hear that,
Yeah.
to know that nervousness is, Andy Petticombe would say like nervousness is a part of life, and just like acknowledge it and notice it when it's there, and when it passes, like also acknowledge that. So
1,000%.
in the pursuit of our passions, whether it be producing content like the blogcast, or I'm trying to write as much music as I can while I'm
Mhm.
in my house, I get so like tense, and I'm like, I just want to succeed. But that's like kind of like the love analogy. There's going to be really good days and really bad days, but you just kind of have to like almost fall in love with the process of it all, and like fall in love with the anxiety as much as if you're going to date passion, like anxiety is going to be there. So you might as well like passion's best friend, anxiety, and
Mhm.
fall in love with them too. Not romantically. You don't want to like get that love triangle, but
Nah,
you know what I mean.
awkward. Right. No, I'm same wavelength, Kev. I totally get you. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it reminds me also of something we talked about in the mental health awareness episode that I did with Emma and Hannah. We talked about the significance, and I feel like I got some of this from like the Andy Coach Bennett dynamic duo that they really are, because
Mm-hmm.
I think there's so much power in controlling the narrative that you tell yourself and then that you go on to tell other people. I think it's such a conscious effort and I think perspective has everything to do with it. So it's like if I can convince myself that, not even convince, if I just tell myself that, right, like this could be a productive time where I'm working on honing skills that will help me when the world gets back to normal, for example, then this is a really productive time and I'm not wasting anything by enjoying that, you know? I don't know.
Yeah, because productivity is such a concept that was like it was made up. Of course, there's like things that are productive, not productive. But I saw a nice Twitter has been a nice haven of knowledge always, but especially during this because everyone's kind of just like on it, and this is the way to communicate. In that, I totally lost what I was just about to say. Um,
That happens
oh
on
yeah,
Twitter, man. Okay.
yeah. Twitter. Someone along the lines of tweeting that you're only being unproductive based on the standards of a world we're no longer living in. So,
Very
you
true.
know, like I've been talking to my friends that are working full time from home, and they're all like very nervous. Like, how much are you in front of a computer? Like, sometimes I walk away. I'm like, yeah, you should walk away. Like, you're in a very mentally and physically fragile moment in time, and it's okay to like walk away from the computer because you're surviving first right now and working second. And it should always be that, but sometimes we forget that when we're coasting post 1918 Spanish flu pandemic. We were like, oh, we're cool now and we can be hyper productive.
Yeah.
But now we're in a different standard of productivity, and it's interesting to see how everyone's approaching that.
Definitely. I think this, obviously, the pandemic's going to change just about everything that we used to think was familiar and normal and everything. But how do you think, you said something to me a while back that kind of stuck with me, and it's so true. I think so much great art is being made right now, which is just a cool thing. And I think it's going to be cool, first of all, to just look back at this period and be like, oh, this was, I don't know, like, I wonder what they'll call it. You know what I mean? Instead of like the lost generation that was after World War One. Like, what are they going to call us? I'm just curious about it in like the history books. But we're going to be able to look back at a specific group of artists that were inspired and created whole new genres and everything in this very specific time. Definitely speaks to passion. You know what I mean? This is a really good time to exercise those passions and do it unapologetically because we have the time to do it. That can be super liberating, but I also feel like there's such a pressure, like we were saying, to be hyper productive. You have all this time, you might as well write all the songs you can or write that novel you always wanted. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's such a double-edged sword because I so see both sides of it. But I also feel like, and I saw this online too. I think it was Nora Doyle who does a good blog, and her Instagram is great. You know, Nora's great. She said
Yeah.
something about, you can't expect to be your most creative self right now. Like, you're not surrounded by your normal inspirations. You can't put that much pressure on your creative juices at this time. And that for me was like a weight off my shoulders. It's like, true. Like, maybe I don't need to be writing stuff right now because I don't know, it's limited. I don't know. It was interesting to have all of that in my head at
Yeah.
once and trying to make sense of it is a hard thing, but it's interesting. I'm curious what you think about it.
Yeah. Well, I have a lot. You brought up so many good points there. Firstly, like the last thing you said is like, wow, I have so many thoughts. And then we like turn around like, I have to make something of it. I have to make something of
Yeah.
these thoughts. I need to be inspired by it. I need to write about it or something. But that, like Nora said, like you're not going to be creative or like that's it. Like those things were said, and yeah, I don't know. I think of Kurt Vonnegut when he wrote Slaughterhouse-Five. In like the opening chapter, he talks about it from his own, like in his own voice. And he talks about when he was in, the bombing of Dresden, and
Mm-hmm.
then years later he's gonna write Slaughterhouse-Five, and he's like, well, I thought that I was gonna make this war novel that was gonna make me a bunch of money, and all I had to do was talk about my experience. It was gonna be so easy. But then he found that when he was like going to talk about this very traumatizing moment in his life, no words came, and he had to like go talk to friends, and it took him a long time to be creative about something that is supposed to be so grand. Just like this moment, like there's so many emotions and thoughts, I should write a song about it or poetry about it, I have to be doing it right now. So we're kind of getting these like two moments conflated of the hyper productive world that we just left to the world now where we have time to do things that we wanted to do in the world we just left. So it's very difficult. I can imagine everyone stagnating. But some
Yeah.
good news, following the Black Plague was the Renaissance. So maybe we'll have a second Renaissance. A Renaissance of the Renaissance, if you will.
Woohoo! What a zinger. I like that.
Thank
Maybe
you.
that should be the name of the episode. The Renaissance of
Mm.
the Renaissance. I want to throw it back to you, Kev. Do you find yourself personally like feeling more creative? Do you feel inspired? How has your creative process changed, if at all, since quarantine?
Um, wow. I'm writing a lot of songs, and that's fun. That's all I really want to do.
Yeah.
If I can just write songs. I'm wondering what Kevin Parker of Tame Impala fame is doing right now, because shout out more Australian musicians.
Swoon.
Tim,
Don't
Tim
make me
Impala,
swoon.
Kevin Parker. Yeah, I swoon over Kevin Parker a lot. So I'll throw him in there as well. Yeah, because like he was kind of this recluse that stays in his house with just like endless instruments around him and just like pumps out stuff, pumps out content into like some of the best music that our generation has to offer, I think. And I'm curious, like, is he being hyper productive now or is he not? Because
Yeah.
he was kind of already in this self-isolated world and making music. Is he stagnated now, or is he feel very inspired? Um, he kind of had that world before him where he could be self-sustaining, self-isolated, making music. This is the first time I've done that, where like I have the time and resources to do it. So I'm trying to take advantage of it.
Yeah.
But I'm trying not to put too much pressure on myself and just like let the creative juices flow when they will. And if I just need to watch Community or read Harry Potter, then so be it. What about you?
Yeah, I kind of go back and forth. First of all, it's like I don't even think I'm totally certain about what my main creative outlet would be if I had one. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, it's not a go-to, like, oh, I'm going to write a song. It definitely wouldn't be that because I don't know how to write a song. However, it's like I'll write a little, like, frou-frou poem, and I say that because they are just, like, very frou-frou. I'm on this kick of writing poems that are very, like, nursery rhyme-esque, but then about different stuff. I wrote one, like, a year ago. Well, not quite a year ago, in, like, September, about like Tinder dating, but I framed it in like this fair. I don't know if I ever sent that to you, but I will if I haven't.
Wasn't
Because
it? It was in the ampersand, wasn't it?
yes, it was.
I
Yes, it
read it.
was.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, that just I like that format of like a very simple rhyme scheme and a very simple, setup, but then putting in more complicated ideas over it. I just think it's a cool juxtaposition. And I did one of those since quarantine. Like I wrote a poem about just I don't know, all the stuff that was going around in like my house. And I felt like that was a really cool, I don't want to say cathartic because that seems like too deep a word, but it was just it flowed right out of me. Like it happened really quickly. And it felt good to like get it out and to make something that honestly, because I'll be able to look back on that and remember very specific instances about this time based on these little couplets, you know what I mean, that I wrote. So on the one hand, it's like I feel like I should be doing more of that. Like I should make a book of poetry like that. And that could be my thing. And I can produce like a final product of that. But then it's like when I go to try to do it without a spark, like one day a spark just came to me and I did the whole thing start to finish. You know what I mean? But I never could. You know what I mean? It was never a thing where I could just write when I felt like it. And that's why I felt like creative writing classes were really hard for me because I can't turn it on. But then when it like starts to happen, it really does flow. So it's not like it's not happening at all for me in quarantine because I have little pockets of it. So I guess the name of the game is just capitalizing on those little sparks of inspiration and just getting stuff done while that's happening because I can't force it. It's bad.
Yeah. Yeah. 2 points I'll try to make clearly. There's
No
a
need.
Nike Run
Stop making
Club
sense.
Headspace.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a Nike Run Club Headspace run that I recommend called Running Towards Your Goals.
Okay.
And Coach Bennett is talking to Andy about this, and he's like, I have these ideas about. I mean, he writes all those runs. Like he's writing
Yeah.
those. He's a very creative person. And he's like, oh, I should write a book. Oh, but I can't write a book. That's so much work. I can't do that. All of a sudden, he's like, before he even made anything, he's already talking himself out of it.
Mm-hmm.
So we kind of just have to like, the creative process I'm trying to learn in this moment of, creative freedom in terms of time is just like when something creative is flowing, don't judge it. Just like let it flow out.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like writing, I usually have like my notebook next to me while I'm working. And like whenever something pops up, I'll write it down. And I was like kind of writing these lyrics, and they seem like super almost cliche, like turned into this like Irish drinking song where like it kind of rocks back and forth. And I was like, oh, this isn't the music I make. I'm like,
Right.
what the hell am I talking about? Like, I don't have an album. I don't have a sound that people are reviewing in Pitchfork. Just like write whatever. There's
Yeah.
no rules. No rules, Corona. So
Corona no rules.
yeah.
I love it. Yeah. Interesting.
I guess we just had to like fall going back to passion and love. It's just like
Yeah.
fall in love with those moments because like love
Yeah.
is a fleeting thing, and so is moments of passion and creativity. So like when you're in them, just like feel good about it.
Yeah.
I guess is the goal,
No,
and not get
totally.
overwhelmed by anxiety.
Yeah. Another thing when we talk about like passions and making that a career or at least sort of career-ish, like I don't know. When you're coupling passion with like an occupation, like an obligation that you have to do, I think about like this blogcast, for example. I kind of hold myself to this schedule and I'm trying to be productive with this, but I also definitely I'm passionate about it and it's a creative outlet for me to be able to go through an outline and like think of an idea and find the right person to talk about the right things with. And it's I don't know, this has been a really interesting exercise, one just being that it's happening within quarantine very specifically, and also in that it's coupling these two things that I think previously I thought of as very contradictory. On the one hand, the super creative, do what feels right in the moment, talk about what you want to talk about with the people you want to talk about it with. But on the other hand, having a really set schedule and knowing that on Tuesday afternoons I'm doing Instagram content for the following Thursday. You know what I mean? So I can post the video at the right time to make sure that we get more plays on the Spotify on this certain day. Like I try to do such a calculated thing based on something that is such a creative little just me. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I guess it's translating it from just something within my own head and making it, I don't know, like comprehensible to somebody else. So that's where the work comes in. I don't know. I imagine that it's similar process for music, and that it's something that's so personal to you and within your own being and your own creative mind, but then you have to put in the actual work, like the labor of getting people to hear it. And that's very much part of it, the creative process, I would say. But I don't think we think about scheduling social media as a passion driven thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but it is. You said that. That was
Right.
so well said. Like, I have nothing to
Thank
add to
you.
that. That was very well said.
Thank you. I felt like I
Yeah.
was really spiraling, but I'm glad it made sense to you, because I don't know, I don't think it's ever something I really thought about before, but I think they're, in my mind at least, super contradictory, but then again they're not, because they exist within the same project, you know?
Yeah. And if I could also try to verbalize thoughts I'm swirling around my head,
Yeah.
um, yeah, that's so true. Like, whether it be poetry or podcasting or music, it really is just telling your own experience and trying to make it com- comprehensible to someone else, and like
Yeah.
trying to have that energy flow to someone else. And that's so hard because a lot of time you don't know who you're talking to.
Totally.
And I have this conversation with Devin all the time because we come into our show with like these swirling thoughts that these songs take us to, and then I just like looking at Devin like, does that make sense? Does that make sense? And Devin's like, yeah, it doesn't have to make sense. Just let it out, and we'll fill in with comedy bits the
Yeah.
parts that we're trying to understand. And I think that's like what's so important about music and conversation that we're having right now is like they fill in the gray area,
Yeah.
and that's really nice.
Totally.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's an interesting concept. And then I also think it's a super fine line between being true to what you want to create and produce and being true to what you're passionate about, but then still, like I said, making it, I guess, marketable. And it's like, what point do you cross the line, and when does it like selling out? Like, when are you no longer true to yourself because you're too focused on the audience? But you can't not focus on the audience, because that's kind of the point. It's like, is it worth
Yeah.
making something if it's never going to be anywhere? I think to some people, yes. For me, I don't think so.
Well, I say absolutely. I say absolutely. Going back to Nike Run Club,
Yeah.
so many good wisdoms. I think it's in that same run called I Need This Run,
Hmm.
where Coach Bennett's talking about like, hey, you're up and moving and expelling energy. And the energy doesn't like go away when you're doing something physical like running or producing something like music or podcasting. You're putting energy into the world, and it's going to be picked up by someone, whether it like bounces off a wall and goes back into you and you inspire yourself, or someone sees you running down the street, or someone just hears your friend talking about something that cause an endless chain of butterfly flapping wings to like
Hmm.
cause the energy to go somewhere that you wouldn't even know. I think it's just like the act of expelling creative energy and work. I mean, it's follows the laws of physics. Like energy doesn't get destroyed; it just changes.
Yeah.
So like you're putting your energy out there, and it's affecting something in the world. So it's
Right.
not for nothing. I don't think it's
Right.
always
And then
worth
I
it.
think to think about it from the other end too, like think of all the artists that have inspired you. We talked about that in part one. We've talked about it, I'm sure, in this part too. I think you talk about the artists that inspire you without even realizing that's what you're communicating about. We are surrounded by so much content that it, I don't know what else to say besides it's inspiring. I think it changes our perspective. It changes the way we view the world. It changes who we are sometimes. Whoa. But I think
Hmm.
I stand by it. I think that's so true. So someone wrote that thing, like if you have a certain song in your mind, I think of like any Taylor Swift song ever written. Like Taylor Swift wrote that song. She never met me. She doesn't know me, but I feel like they speak to me sometimes. That is a crazy, crazy thing. And I think maybe the dream of a creative person is to like hit it home with someone else in that way. You know what I mean? Where something resonates so strongly with someone you've never met, and you just share a common experience. And the whole goal, the passion, resides in trying to communicate that shared feeling,
Yeah, I
right?
think of it as you said something. I think maybe it was in the very beginning of part one of maybe when you were introducing me was like
Yeah.
something along the lines of like speaking your truth and telling your truth, and like that is art. If you're like talking candidly, that will always have value, at least in my eyes and in many people's eyes. Like Taylor Swift just told her truth, spoke out with what she had in the moment,
Mm-hmm.
and just let it fly, and it inspired millions of people across the world.
Totally.
Yeah.
It's
And
really
I
wild.
think something that I really come back to when I'm thinking of passion and love and putting in work for something you care about is a moment. I played rugby, I think before I knew you, right?
I was
Maybe
right on the
my
cusp
first two
of like
years.
you hurt your
Yeah.
shoulder and then really we're done with rugby.
Yeah, I hurt myself a lot.
Yeah.
I played rugby for 2 years. I played football for like 6. They kind of like flowed into each other. But rugby taught me a lot because it really was the first time like I put in hours of like intense conditioning, because like that game is so wild and you need to be so physically fit for it. And we would just run these things called New Zealands, where we go to if you're envisioning the Fordham football field, it's also
Mm-hmm.
combined with the baseball field. And we like run an N and then a Z across that whole field, like sprinting one way and then jogging the next, sprinting across. Like it was grueling.
Yeah.
And then one time, our captain, we called him the King. His name was AJ. He wasn't like a very big guy. He was like shorter than me. He played wing, and we're all like gathered around him after this like particularly intense running session, and we're all like about to throw up, about to pass out, and he's just like hands on his hips, standing as tall as he can, and says, "You all need to fall in love with this feeling, like this feeling right now of being so almost on the brink of breaking down. Like this is where it happens, and you have to fall in love with it." I was like, wow, that is such a profound thing. So from then on, I just like tried to smile while I was running, and like it really helped, or like talking positively to myself while I'm running, and it helped so much. And people would think I'm crazy because I'd like end sprints by like laughing, and I was kind of going crazy at that point in the August sun, but just like falling in love with the work of it all. I think kind of going back, like I wrote down, it's kind of cheesy, like do what you love, but also love what you do,
Yeah.
because if you're loving what you're doing actively, you're in love, and that's nice. Yeah, I go back
Yeah.
to that moment a lot.
No, I think that's a really good, like, concrete example. And I have a couple things to say. One, you said maybe that is crazy. So again, passion, love, craziness, madness, it's all one and the same. So I
Mm-hmm.
think we're just really driving home these points that we're not even trying to make, it's just happening. And second, you said, the whole advice from the king, AJ, is you
Mm-hmm.
need to fall in love with this. My question to you, do you get to pick what you fall in love with? In general, do you think that's a thing that we can do? Do you think sometimes, do you think not at all? I'm very curious what you think about this, because based on that story, it's like, yeah, you can make an act. And again, it goes back to that framing your mind, creating your narrative. Like you have the power to control the narrative you tell. So if you loving that exercise works for you, great. Wouldn't work for me. You know what I'm saying? But do you think
Yeah,
more broadly, is that something you can pick? Can you pick what you love?
I'm happy we're transitioning a lot to love, because I'd like to pick your brain about it, because I wonder how we talk about our Venn diagrams a lot.
Yeah.
What are ideals of love, how closely they are together, because we kind of talk about that a lot, like whenever we're talking about hinge dates, or just like, will I fall in love with this person I just met, or I just went on this first date, how'd it go? We typically have like different opinions, and we're like, oh, I wouldn't see it that way, but that's a good point. We always like respect what we're saying.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I wonder, do we get to pick what we fall in love with? Maybe in some capacity. I mean, we like to think about falling in love, like,
Mm-hmm.
whoa, I stepped in this love puddle and now my leg is drenched in love. But I
Yeah.
don't think that's really how it happens. Like, you really have to work to fall in love. Shout out Emma, who me and Emma took a personality psychology class, and we
I
both,
remember you guys. Yeah.
yeah, we both were really interested in this thinker named Eric Fromm, and we watched a video of him talking about love, about how love is not really something you fall into, but you really have to put a lot of work in for. And I mean, you think of like a loving relationship that lasts years, like
Yeah.
that is so much work and time and ups and downs that go into it. So I think like you might like fall in lust with someone,
Yeah.
and that is like the uniting factor that will make you work for full blown love.
Wow.
So yeah, I think you do pick in some way. You don't choose who you like, start to ooh, but I think you pick what you love and what is worth your time to love.
Okay. I think
What
that's
do you
fair.
think?
I think that's I didn't know what I thought about it, but I like your explanation and I agree with it because I, I don't know. I think I want to say, like, there's such a big part of me that wants to say, no, you don't pick it all. There are factors completely outside of our control that predetermine who I'm supposed to be madly in love with. Like, that's what I want to say to you. But I don't know if I totally believe that because I think that there obviously is so much more that goes into it. And that's a conscious choice, you know, whether or not you, I don't know. And then it's the whole difference of like being in, like loving someone and being in love with someone. I think maybe that's the line that I'm like dancing on right now because I don't know. Like I said, I want to believe so bad that it's completely out of our control, but you have to work. And that's a choice. You know what I mean? You have to make a very conscious effort to put in that kind of long-term labor of love. But, you know,
Labor of love.
yeah.
That's a great phrase. I never really thought of it that way. Labor of love.
I never thought, yeah,
Yeah.
labor of love.
I've been in love twice
Okay.
romantically. I can count them. Um, and when those relationships ended, I have found, and I'm still finding that I never stopped loving these people. I
Yeah.
will love them forever. I will always want them to succeed, and I'll always want them to be happy. But I don't love them in the way that I did
Hmm.
a few months ago, a few years ago,
Yeah.
you know? So, like, love changes, and now my loving them is a lot of mental work of like, and that was pretty crazy towards the end, like, to like, and putting a lot of work into like rationalize the decisions I made and to understand that I still have these loving feelings to them, even though there's also a lot of, you know, kind of that darker underbelly of
Yeah.
frustration and things that didn't work, and now trying to work to learn from it and work to still care about them and not like be spiteful. And luckily, I think the two times I was in love, I had really good, solid relationships, and it's easier for me to continue loving them because I can imagine if it was really bad, like being very frustrated with myself, like
Yeah.
not understanding why I still love them, and not understanding like yeah what that emotion is, and I'm like, oh, it's love. I know what it feels like.
Right. And also it brings up a point of like, okay, do you get to pick if you fall in love? Undecided, probably yes-ish. But then it's not, you can't just decide to be out of love. I think a lot of times that would be easier, especially like in a breakup situation. I can think of, you know, examples where it's like, it'd be so much easier if I could just flip off this switch and like not care about this person anymore. But like, that's not something you can do. So that makes me think again that there's like a bigger thing. It's bigger than you and I. I don't know. It's
Yeah,
wild to think about. It's hard to wrap your head around, but I think that's the point. I think that's why these things are interesting to talk about and to create art about. Because honestly, I think that's where a lot of this all comes together. Is I just like talking about love, but I think so many people do, and that's why we have great love songs and poetry and epic poems and novels and all of it. You know?
well, okay, I'm excited that you brought that up because
Okay.
I wanted to ask you,
Yeah.
what piece of art, poem, movie, song, I think maybe I asked you this over text, but it's nice to have it.
Yeah.
What do you think like really fully best captures love in your eyes? Like what is the best piece of art that you're like, yeah, that's it. Like they're almost right.
Yeah. I don't. I think it's hard. First of, I mean, I've never been in love, also, so I think that's an important like precursor to say this is all just me guessing, like what it would be like, and I think maybe that's where a lot of my like thoughts about it come from. Is like, oh, it's gonna be great. You know what I mean? Like it's. I don't have something to compare it to personally, but I don't know. I have a lot of like. I don't know. I have a playlist. I'm gonna bring it up. Do you have anything that comes off the top of your head? I know, like, I'm trying to think what I sent you. There's a couple like beautiful songs. I have that one playlist, "Raining in a Rom-Com," and I just feel like so many on that, like, really to me are like, this is it. Because all the songs that I'm thinking of, there's some like point. It's not just the fluffy stuff. I think there's like a real point of contention or confusion or like heartache kind of within them. You know what I mean? I think the number one that comes to my mind, and I really just wanted to stall so that I didn't like jump to Taylor Swift, but like honestly, let's be real, I'm who I am. I don't know if you know the song All Too Well, Taylor Swift.
I don't.
You don't?
I'll write it down. I don't.
Kevin, I genuinely think you would be all about this. All Too Well, but it is a heartbreak song. Like it's a breakup kind of thing about like kind of the things that went wrong. But before she gets to that, like the crux of the song, the meaning of the song, she details this whole love affair. It's about Jake Gyllenhaal if you want to know the real love story. But I just feel it in my soul so much when I hear that song. And it's a weird song. I think you would go crazy with your music theory about it because it's not set up like a normal song where there's like a verse and then a chorus and then a verse. Like it's structured just different. It's like 5.5 minutes, which is weird for Taylor Swift, who's like very top 40. You know what I'm saying? There's so many layers to it, and I just think she paints such an excellent picture. But I think it's super important to note that like the whole point of it is like she knows this feeling all too well. Like it's not going to last and da 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 da. But still, you totally lose yourself in this other person and the experiences you're having. Dancing in the refrigerator light in the kitchen. What a beautiful image. You know what I mean? Like you can that is a concrete image that I can picture. You are in love with that person. The fridge is open. You're dancing in the kitchen. That's beautiful. You're in love. You know what I mean? And if you could, you would stop that to save yourself from the heartbreak that's inevitably going to happen because this isn't your person or whatever. But you can't. You have to experience that because that makes you who you are. That's what I think. Anyway, what do you think?
Yeah, that is so well said as well. I think of the, I don't know if you've ever seen the like kind of more full length Lumineers music video. They did like 3 songs from their album Cleopatra. It's really good. It's hard to explain, but there's like a moment where these two like couple like get serendipitously married. I don't know if I pronounced that right, but you know what I mean.
I like it.
You get married in like a moment.
Yeah.
In like someone's backyard, and then like it was like a big party, and then everyone else is asleep, and there's just like a moment where they both have like 2 earbuds in, and they're just like dancing at night together, like right next to each other. And I'm like, oh, that's love right there. It's so beautiful. But yeah, there's like little moments of like dancing in front of like the refrigerator at night. Like that's love, and you might not be married to them, but like it was worth it in the end. And I think that's like the rationalization and the post-love work that needs to go in that I was kind of talking about before. Very well said. I'll check out the song.
I really like of all the Taylor Swift, and I would stand by anything she's ever made ever because I just love her so much. But that, I just think hands down is the best it's one of the best songs. I really think it. I think lots of people agree. I'm so excited to hear what you have to say about it. I really am. We could do a whole episode, Kevin, seriously, on that song. I really think it. I would do it.
Sure. I'll be back.
I love it. Okay, stay tuned. That was a good question, though. I like that. Wow, interesting. Do you have any, like, go-to, I guess, the Cleopatra album that you mentioned, but do you have any other, like...
Yeah. I have 2.
Okay.
Maybe I have 3 by the time I finish explaining the first 2. The first is, in terms of, like, love, romantic love between 2 people, I think Father John Misty's song, I Went to the Store One Day, is a beautiful love song because it's kind of like magical realism, but also very real. Like it talks about, the first lines is like, we met in a parking lot buying coffee and cigarettes, and that's how they meet each other. And then the next verses are just kind of like doing this magical realism telling of their future. And like moving away and having kids, and it's just like so well said, and I can't say it better than him, but like that one is like, oh yeah, he nailed love. That's a weird phrase, but he like got it down. He talks about the goods and the bads very well. And then another one that my brother showed me is called Growing Up by River Run North. And what I like about this one is that it talks about love in not just like boy meets girl or, you know, any type of romantic love. It talks about like loving family and friends. And I like the first lines is, there's a fight to be won by the love you find at home. And I like that it acknowledges loving where you come from, but there's also a fight to be won there. You need to work for it. Like familial love, there's some ups and downs, just like a romantic relationship. Very different, but still like the work you have to put in for it.
Yeah.
So I like that one. And they talk about loving your friends as well.
Yeah.
And I think that was like the biggest lesson I learned from college, is that you could like love in all different ways.
Yeah.
And I learned that like you can love your friends. So I like that as well.
Right. And that it's just as much work sometimes. I think it's easy to just be like, oh, yes, these are the people that I love, my loved ones. Like, it's an easy kind of label to slap on something. But in the behind the scenes of that, I think especially in a time like quarantine where you might be stuck in very close quarters with people that you do love, it brings out the things that are active efforts. Again, labor of love. I like that we came around to that because I think it's so true. There's a reason why that's a phrase that people say. You know what I mean? It's interesting. Yeah, but I like that too, opening up beyond romantic love, because obviously there's similarities, you know. Interesting.
Yeah, but they're almost like they're not sung about very much. Like I don't know many songs about friends. There's probably a bunch, but like, or at least loving your friends.
That's not like a genre in the way we think of like love songs you can list, and you know what I mean? It's not as, I guess, I don't know. Yeah. We should make a playlist. Friend love.
Yeah, we'll make it collaborative. Friend love.
Okay. I'm down for
The
that.
first one I think of is Friends by Led Zeppelin. It's about loving your friends. So
I'm
that will
not
be
gonna
maybe
know
the
one.
opener.
I know a good one by Hannah Montana. You're a true friend. That's a great song.
Oh,
You're
nice.
here.
A true friend.
It's a really beautiful song. We'll send
Yeah.
it. It'll be on the collab.
A true friend. Maybe that's like what we say, like, oh, you're a true friend. And I think that's like a way of saying is like, oh, I love you. You love me. Like you're a true friend. You stand by me in anything.
I consider you a true friend.
Friends.
Aw.
I say the same to you. Yeah.
This
true
is
friends.
nice. Man. Yeah. I like where this is going. This has been a weird, like, again, I never quite know where it's going to go once we depart from the outline. But
I'm looking at my notes are wild. Like it's just things that rugby, whiplash, love, Eric Fromm, all over the place, different colors. It's pretty great.
I like it. That's when you know. Going off the rails. I don't even know what time we started. Like, I'm trying to like have a time point of like, are we under time, on time? I have no idea. Do you know when we started this? I really don't know.
We're right on time.
Okay.
I think in the beginning, I think in part 1 I said it's July 13th, 2024. So yeah. I think we're doing pretty good.
We're still on that date.
Yeah.
I love it. What else? Do you have any other like unresolved, like what else? Any other things that you want to bring up? I like where, I don't know, I'm like feel all ready to go. I want to talk forever.
Okay. I have, okay. That sentence brought up a few things. First, just a quick statement. We can go back to it if you want. I found that conversation, most of the time it's over Zoom. For me, a lot of it is over Xbox 360 with my friends.
Oh, yeah.
Conversations have been so cathartic for me because everyone has like pent up thoughts.
Yeah.
And like, whenever I'm talking to someone, I noticed it like the day for them announced that like, no more classes till March 30th, and everyone went to the quad and like packed and no one knew what was going on or when we were coming back. I was just kind of walking around on my lunch break at work, and every time I stopped to talk to someone, everyone was like, oh my God, I don't know what's going on. And like, just all this conversation like flowed out of them. And I'm noticing that we're a little bit more controlled than that day, but every time I'm talking to someone, it's always like everyone's so happy to converse and there's so much to catch up on, even though we're all kind of like in a confined space. But do you have any thoughts on that before?
I do, because I think I totally agree, and I felt that. I think there's something, like you said, cathartic about just talking about anything, especially not about the coronavirus, because it's very easy to get bogged down by that. But also, in all of the podcasts I listen to on a regular basis, a lot of them start out their episodes each and every week being like, it's week whatever, like week 10 of quarantine, we still have content. Like, here we go. You know what I mean? Like, we're not running out of things to say. Even like the pop culture kind of like celebrity news things aren't stopped. Like, there's still things to discuss, and I think people are more ready than ever to discuss them, and I think there's something cool about that. I'm glad to be a part of that, you know?
Agreed. That's, well said again.
Thank you. Kevin, you are just like amping me up today. I feel so this is so fun. Long overdue. I think that's what it is. We just haven't done this in so long.
Yeah, agreed.
I love it.
The question I had written down and it's based off a great question, one of the best questions I've ever heard asked. And
Wow.
this is from the, I don't know what year it was. I guess I was a senior, so it was 2019, spring 2019 RA interviews.
Whoa.
And when I was doing my interviews, one of the questions they had was, how do you know when you're stressed, and what do you do when you feel that? And I guess the question that we can answer that, or I had it written, like, how do you know when you're feeling passionate, and what do you do about it to resolve it or capitalize on it?
Interesting. Do you have
Yeah.
an answer while I think of one?
I mean, I'm happy I was on the asking side.
Yeah,
This is bringing me back to RA interviews. The person I
totally.
interviewed had a great answer. My form of stress, at least, and since stress is the cousin of passion that we
Right.
established before,
They're at the barbecue.
it's very physical to me. Yeah, I
Yeah.
feel it in my arms and chest. It's a physical sensation.
Interesting.
And there'd be times where senior year of college, I'm trying to start my ideals in music and get into the music industry like I wanted to do. And during the time, I was playing so much drums, learning how to play the drums. And I'd be winding down the end of the year, probably around March, and I'd be sitting in Pete's Cafe, and I have loaded up on coffee, surrounded by 2 or 3 really good friends, having great
You're
conversations like this.
shaking in the corner at Pete's.
Yeah, I'm vibrating from some stupid bit I'm doing, and also from all the caffeine.
Yeah.
And then we're like, okay, we gotta get out of here. Let's do the next thing. And then someone would say hey, you want to go do this? And I'd look at them and be like, I cannot do that. I need to go play the drums right now. I need to do it. They're like, no, come on, play drums later. I'm like, no, I can't do it. I need to play this. I need to get this energy and creative thoughts out. While you were talking, I thought of 3 songs I wanted to learn. I need to go. I would lock myself away until that feeling passed. So for me, when I'm feeling passionate, if I'm sitting, just hanging out in my house, I'm there's a moment where I gotta go downstairs and play guitar, or I gotta take my journal out and write something down.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what it is. It's very physical. I need to go do it.
I get that. I don't know if I'm quite so in the moment about it in the way that you're describing it, and it wouldn't make sense if I did, we're different people. But I think for me, it's kind of, if an idea sparks, or I have a new concept that I want to work out in a BLOGCAST episode, in a cutesy little poem, in whatever the case is, I think the thing that same thing, I need to write it down somewhere, but mostly so I don't forget. I think I get so much anxiety of what if this idea leaves my mind? I remember not long ago, this was a quarantine story, I got a little pop up in my mind. Isn't that weird? That's how I imagine my thoughts, a pop up on a screen. But I got a little pop up that was a little couplet, because I'll just give a brief backstory. I was going through, this is embarrassing, I'm just going to do it. I was going through texts that I sent to this guy that I'm pretty sure I'm in love with, but never met him. It's a whole thing. He has a nickname, I'm not going to say it. I'll tell you later. I told you about him many times. I'm getting nervous. Anyway, I was going back through my text, and I would realize all the stupid, one was a typo. I just used the wrong your, and I just was so mad at myself, because this isn't the guy that you want to use the wrong your with. He definitely would have noticed, and I'm not saying he would judge me, but he noticed, and I want to use the right your around him. There's some guys I don't care, but I cared for him. And then, so anyway, I did that, and then I got this idea to write a poem about typos to your crush, and that's a poem that I read. I put it on the blog. I'll link it in the show notes. But I had the first couplet in my head, and I literally couldn't fall asleep. I was I need to. So I have notes on my phone of just little rhyming things of I used the wrong your. I feel so poor. That wasn't it. But you know what I'm saying? So I think for me, it's I feel so anxious, I don't want to forget this idea, and then the next morning I got up and wrote the whole thing, and then posted it that night. So I think it's just, I don't know, again, it's coupled, because it's the stress of losing it, the anxiety. You're muted. I was trying to read your lips, I couldn't do it. What's he saying?
What's the name? I got distracted by SpongeBob. What a great metaphor. The SpongeBob episode I referenced is when all he remembers is fine dining and breathing,
Oh,
and
right.
then they ask him what his name is, and then he goes into his brain, and there's a bunch of little SpongeBobs like running around.
The fire.
And that's often what my brain, I feel, looks like. Like, what a cathartic,
That's
vindicating image that I saw at a young age. Because sometimes when I'm thinking of that right before I go to bed, like, that's what's happening. A bunch of little Kevins running around, like, someone's got to remember this. Who's going to remember this before we go to bed? Like, everyone else is like, I'm going to bed. Like, I'm tired. Where's good memory, Kevin? Oh, he doesn't exist? Okay. Where was I going with this? I don't remember. But I guess what I was going to say was, like, that's what it is like, I think the anxiety happens when I'm thinking of something and I'm not acting on it.
Mm-hmm.
And once I'm acting on it, then I feel better.
Mm-hmm.
And the trouble is when I feel like I'm acting on it and I still feel anxious because I think it's not good enough, or some unnamed faceless audience member that I've made up in my own head isn't going to like this type of song.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I like am trying to stop myself and be like, let it out. It'll come. Like, don't worry about it. So I'm really just working this out as I'm saying this. But like, this is a realization I'm having.
I'm picking it up. I'm with you.
Like, anxiety for passion needs to be acted on for me. And it seems like, kind of based off the story you had, like, also for you to make that anxiety and nervousness go away. But for me, when I'm still nervous while I'm acting on it, that's my red flag. And that's how I know I'm stressed.
Yeah.
Thank you. I want to be an RA. Please hire me.
You're hired.
Yes.
You get the garden level.
I'm 23. I don't go to school anymore.
I love it. But I think there's something really interesting in both of our examples that we gave, because both of them kind of center around this sometimes identified, sometimes arbitrary audience member that you like want to impress or inspire, or I don't know, you know what I mean? Like, there's a very concrete, or not concrete, there's an image in our head of someone we're doing it for, you know? I just think that's interesting.
I thought of my dog.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Who's your dog like this? Olivia's like chasing the groundhog. She's like, I hate that song, Kevin.
Yeah. No. Yeah, I guess, like, who are you doing it for? When I was talking to Devin, when we were like trying to figure out how to get the show off the ground,
Mm-hmm.
we were talking about it, and I was like, hey, Dev, we got to make sure, like, first and foremost, we're doing this for ourselves every week. That me and you are, like, having fun talking to each other. Because if we're having fun talking to each other for ourselves, like, we'll continue doing it no matter what the reception is like. Like, we'll just keep doing it because we like doing it. And that's kind of nice. Like, whoever else wants to join in listening can join in listening. But I also understand that, like, people might not like it. So I can't get caught up with that.
No, totally. And I think that goes down to how we started this discussion, which is identifying your passion. And I think the number one way that, like, you hear of how to identify your passion goes back to that: do what you love, you'll never work. Like, what would you want to do for your life that if you never got paid, if no one ever looked at it or cared about it, you would still do it? You know what I mean? And that's a good example.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good way to, like, but it's also, like, sometimes really hard to find that thing. And I think there's sometimes time constraints on it. Like, I don't know if we're going to be doing this for the rest of our life. Like, me, this show, you, your show. Like, that maybe isn't going to be a thing when we're, like, married with kids. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But, like, for right now.
That would be our podcast then, is Married with Kids with Kevin and Rachel.
Wouldn't that be interesting? What a turn that would take.
And our kids are like really embarrassed that their parents are doing a podcast.
Still, I wonder what podcasts will be like when we're, like, old. I don't know.
I keep having this continued thing of, like, me being old and senile, telling my grandkids to come play me a podcast, and they're like, podcast? That's like telling someone now to, like, go get my phonograph and play my favorite song on, like, wax, you know?
No, I know. It's interesting. But yeah, the whole point of, like, doing it just for yourself and having that being fulfilling enough. I think that's how you find it. Because
something that, I don't know, worries me, but also I really like, is that I love myself so much. And some people might say too much, but at the end of the day, I'm like, well, I love myself, so it's great.
No, I get it, Kevin. I'm really actually glad that you said this. I don't mean to cut you off, but I literally had this thought, like, when I do these episodes every week, and now we're on YouTube. I'm going to keep plugging that because it's like, I listen to these episodes so many times. Like, first of all, it's outlining it. Like, that's one version of going through it. And I'm like so fascinated by my own thoughts that I just feel the need to produce them for other people to listen to. Then I'm actually talking about it with a friend like we are right now. Then I have to edit it, so I'm listening to it again. And then I listen to it at least like 3 more times. And then I watch the video of me talking about this stuff. Like, I feel like this is like really shining a light on my own narcissism, but I'm like weirdly comfortable with it. I can't explain it.
Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like, I don't know where in my life someone told me that I shouldn't like the things that I make.
Yeah.
Like, why is that not cool?
Wait, no, that's actually so true, and that makes me feel very, you know what I mean? I think it should, like, we're proud of what we're putting out into the world. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
Thank you, Kevin. I'm really glad, I really am genuinely glad that you said that. I feel a lot better. I was nervous. Like, who am I?
I think I texted you and Devin a few days ago where I was like, oh, I'm going back to re-listen to the podcast that we wrote about re-listening to stuff.
Yes.
I was like, nice.
Crazy.
Yeah.
It's wild.
Yeah. That's what kind of like made me feel comfortable like writing songs, because I started writing poems, whatever they are, just like moments of writing, and go back to reread them, and I'm like, this is pretty good. Even like a college essay, I'm like, this is pretty good. I like that I did the work. And I was like, oh, why am I holding myself back from writing songs? Like, if I like everything else I create, I'll probably like the songs that I make. And if I make them for myself, then I'm going through my phone, like, this isn't the song I want to listen to. This isn't the song I want to listen to. Just go make it. Like, I want to go make the song I want to listen to.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Wait, this is really, really interesting, because I always think of like the people that made it, the Taylor Swifts of the world. Like, are they going back and listening to their own stuff, or is that like, are they so beyond that? But I like to think that Taylor Swift is out there just listening to her own album on a loop sometimes, because she's proud, because it's a beautiful piece of art. You know?
Yeah. Because I hear a lot of interviews with artists that say they don't.
Mm-hmm.
Can't think of any that say they do. The question doesn't get asked as much as I'd like to. It almost seems like a cliche question, but I don't think it is.
Right. I think it's super interesting. And why not? Like, I think it'd be so refreshing. Wouldn't it be so refreshing to hear like a really big name or someone you really respect being like, yeah, I'm really proud of this, and I listen to it a lot because it's something that brings me joy. Like, that is like, I want to hear that.
Yeah, because I think the equivalent for your Taylor Swift, like Rachel is to Taylor Swift as Kevin is to the Strokes.
Yeah.
And listening to like that first album especially is so polished, and like every moment is planned, especially by Julian Casablancas. And he had to like that music to get that so tight and like so trimmed. There's like no fat on the album. Like, everything is just like lean music. He must have liked it, you know? And there's like a great interview with him, like very early in his career, where he's like talking to this interviewer. The interviewer is like a parody interviewer, but like he gets good reactions out of artists. And Julian like kind of freaks out. He's like, just listen to the album. Like, we put a lot of work into the album. Let the music speak for itself. Mm-hmm. I was like, yeah, that's a person like defending their work and cares about it. And that was like very nice to see.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I like this. I feel like inspired. I feel like this is right. Like, I don't know. I feel like I'm very justified in feeling the things I'm feeling. And I also feel pretty, like, it's just a really cool feeling to like have something to identify, like, this is something I'm producing that I really like, but other people can enjoy too. Because I couldn't have said that a year ago. Like, I couldn't have pointed to anything and been like, this is something that I'm putting out into the world just because I like it. That's the only reason. Just because I'm really invested in it and I'm proud of it. And now it's like I'm building a portfolio of stuff that just like shows who I am to the world. That's cool. I don't know.
Yeah. And it seems that like not only do you like revisiting the final product, but you also like the act of getting there, which is also important. We're talking about like what love is, or loving what you do. You know, we all think about loving the final product of what we're going to be in our lives, but we're talking about how we have to love the process of getting there, and that seems to be what you're doing now. So like, good on you. Like, give yourself some credit there. You know, that's good.
Man, this
nice.
Kevin. Dang.
Yeah.
I don't know what else to say. This feels good. I cannot wait to do another. I feel like I have at least 12 other ideas of like episodes I want to do with you now. We always get to a great place, and I really like it. It's cool.
I'll see you tomorrow. It's
Yeah,
a 3-day
right?
weekend, so maybe.
Why not? Honestly, this is just the tip of the iceberg, people. This is big. We got nothing but time.
Yeah.
This
I
is
love the show. I love being on the show. I'll be happy to come back whenever I am called upon.
Listen, it's gonna happen. I love this. This is so, and it's such a departure, I think, from other like the other weekly stuff. Like, it's just a different vibe, which as it should be. This is cool,
Yeah.
Kevin. Just thank you for being here, man. What an episode. Any
Thank you for
sign
having
off
me.
remarks you want to do?
Uh, love what you do and do what you love.
As that,
Right?
Kevin.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Rachel Malik. This has been the Her Life Blogcast. Okay, I'll end that.